All right, everyone, and thank you for being patient. We're going to get started here in just a moment. We want to welcome you, of course, and thank you for joining us, but there are just a few things that I want to let you know before we get started. We'll be hearing from two people today, Sergey Lobachev, who is a researcher in the field of linguistics, and maybe a little bit from me as well. I'm Jessica Day. I'm an innovation analyst here at IdeaScale. And so what we're going to do here is Sergey will present, and then at the end of that, we'll have some time for questions that you might want answered. But if you do have any questions in the meantime, Sergey will keep one eye on the questions feed, and if it's a good moment to answer your question, he's going to go ahead and answer it. If not, we'll just answer it when we get to the end there. I also wanted to let everybody know that we are recording, so this will be available after the webinar is over for you to share or for you to review. And of course, if there are any questions about this webinar or IdeaScale, you can feel free to contact me afterwards. But in the meantime, we can hand things over to Sergey.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I hope everybody can hear me okay. And let's get started. In my presentation, I will provide you results of my research on global information production that I conducted. Well, it started actually about 5 years ago, and the results of research have been updated quite recently. The interest to this kind of research arose from the fact that my primarily occupation was librarian and information professional, so I became interested in how information was produced and what barriers we have when we're trying to access information. I'll start with a very short introduction of some background of the research, and then I will provide you the data. And you may type the question in the panel box, so I will monitor the question. If I have a chance, I will answer the question during presentation, or we leave it at the end. During the last 10 or 20 years, we have witnessed exponential growth of information production across the world. There was research that had been done at the University of California, Berkeley in 2003, which says that in 2001, information available in print, film, and other media was equivalent to about 250 megabytes for each person on Earth, including men, women, or children. And since 2001, this number apparently has changed, increased, but we just don't have updated information in this respect. It was also estimated that in 2007, almost 94% of all memory, of all recorded memory we had was in digital form. So apparently information growth, we witness information growth due to growth of digital media. This growth may create false assumption that as long as we have more information produced, this information is accessible. This assumption is not quite correct for a number of reasons, and I just want to underline two of those barriers. One barrier, which has been discussed in scholarly literature quite often, is so-called digital divide. Digital divide is basically economic inequality between different groups of societies. And speaking of digital divide, people usually refer to developing countries where digital infrastructure, computer infrastructure is not developed to the same extent it is developed in Western country in North America. However, during the last 5-7 years, this barrier has been pretty much eliminated in some countries, especially rapidly growing countries as Brazil, Turkey, China, Russia, and we can name some more countries. So I think at this point of time, digital divide is not such a big problem in terms of access to information. Apologize for that. But another problem which still exists, it is so-called cultural divide, the barriers we experience due to cultural differences, including language of communication. In my research, I wanted to find out or to draw the profile of this cultural divide, and based on a language profile of information production. So basically, we have to cut this pie if we assume that this pie is global information, information produced globally by all media. So what is percentage of this pie would be for English language, for Spanish language, French, and so on and so forth. At the very beginning of the research, I did not want to find out any precise numbers because it is an enormously difficult task. I'll show you a little bit later that even answering such simple question, how many books have been printed since Gutenberg up to date, this question is not very easy to answer, and we have only very rough estimates. And the same problem we have with all other media. My goal was to find out the relative proportion of information produced in different languages. So we will be looking at the percentage of information relative, how information production in the relative terms, not in absolute numbers. We'll look at two types of media. First of all, traditional media, such as books, journals, magazines, and newspapers, and those media have been around for hundreds of years. And also the new media, like websites, Wikipedia, Facebook, blogs, and Twitter. And then at the very end, we summarized my findings, and especially I will make comparison with the results of the research that I did 5 years ago and with what I found today. It's very interesting to look at the dynamic of those changes in information production from a language perspective. So let's start from book production. So this graph is based on the UNESCO statistics, and up to date, this is the most reliable source of information regarding books production. The problem with calculating how many books were printed in each language, we have a number of databases that accumulate this information, for example, global books in print. The problem, however, is that all those databases were produced by primarily North American vendors. And in North America, or in Western Europe, like in England, the focus, of course, primarily on English language, and because of that, we have the statistic we can acquire from those databases are pretty biased and skewed. Unfortunately, up to date only UNESCO statistics, and it's pretty old, it's 1999, but there was no late updates in this respect. Shows how many relative numbers of books printed, of book titles printed in each language. And we can see that 21, almost 22%, this is the share of English language, following by Chinese Mandarin, German, Spanish, Japanese, Russian, and so on. So even this first look at information production in regards of books immediately identifies that English is the first, but it's not overwhelmingly first, so it's still only around 22%. More precise information can be found regarding scholarly journals and newspaper and magazine articles. Scholarly journals, we see that the number of the percentage of English is very high, 70%. And there's an explanation of this trend. And for scholarly journals, what's happening in other countries, scholars, in order to be recognized and cited, they tend to publish their articles in English language rather than in their own native language. That's, I think, is the reason why this percentage number for English is so high for scholarly journals. If we look at the newspapers and magazines, more lay media, I would say, then the English is still on the top, but only 60%, and followed by German, French, and other languages. Generally speaking, traditional media as newspapers, magazines, what can we call it, popular media, they are dominated by English language. And there might be several explanations for that, but maybe just tradition, and those traditional media, they're well established in English-speaking countries. But if we look at digital media, and I start from the web pages, and those two data sets you can see on the screen. One is what I have found back in 2007, and another one update from 2012. And thankfully now we have a company, w3tech.com, that monitors the number of web pages in different languages. They started this work in January 2012. So before that, there was very difficult to obtain reliable statistics in this respect. If you look at the data, the red numbers shows the decline, and the green numbers show the increase. So we see that the share of the English language slightly declined from 56 to 54.7%, as well as such languages as German and French. But on the other hand, we see the rise of Russian and Spanish, and some Russian, for example, is a significant rise from 1.66 to 5.8%. And the same we can say about Japanese or Portuguese language. So this is a general trend I have found in digital media. Steady English language, decline of traditional West European languages like French and Spanish, French and German, language of developed countries, and at the same time the rise of languages of developing countries like Portuguese and Russian and Chinese. Let's have a look on another page, and this is a page about Wikipedia articles. This is quite interesting area of study, because Wikipedia is open source information, and you can trace these statistics back to the very beginning of Wikipedia era, which was late 90s, the beginning of 2000s. And if you look at the percentages, the number of articles, total number of articles from the in each language, from the percent from the all articles existed in Wikipedia. So we see that again, English, German, French, Italian, those languages are declining, and we see the rise of Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. Another popular media on the internet was blogs, and statistical information I obtained was from WordPress. WordPress, it's about 62 million, more than 62 million blogs exist in WordPress in more than 120 languages. According to WordPress statistics, 66% of all blogs in this domain are English, following by Spanish and then Portuguese, Indonesian, and then Italian, German, and so on. Facebook statistics available due to there's a couple of companies I mostly like, social bakers. They monitor Facebook in different respects, including their language profile. And this is this information I have obtained from their website, which also says that in comparison with 2010 and 2012, we see the decline of English language, and it's quite a significant decline. At the same time, the rise of Spanish, Portuguese, slightly German, and Arabic. So again, the interesting observation here is that English is not, it's leading language on Facebook, but it's not overwhelmingly dominate in this area. Twitter statistics, it was from seniorcast.com, another company that monitors, for marketing purposes, monitors the development on Twitter. We have to keep in mind that Twitter, for example, is banned in China, so we don't see Mandarin language here. So it's probably true to other countries, such as Iran. On the other hand, in those countries where Twitter is available, such as Arabic countries, we see that Arabic is the fastest growing language on Twitter. So English is only 39%, following Japanese, Portuguese, Spanish, Malay, and then Dutch and Korean. So we see digital media in the top 10 languages unexpectedly. For example, Malay or Thai language or Arabic language, and that was a very interesting characteristic, very interesting feature of digital media, which is quite different from traditional media, from printed books, journals, and magazines. To summarize my finding, I have provided two charts that you can compare what was going on in language production, how language production has evolved globally. So if we look at the English, which is still in the lead, the relative amount of all information produced in English is 44%, and there was a slight rise to 45.95%. So it is leading, but it's pretty much steady. This change is not very significant. If we look at other languages of countries, West European countries like German, we see decline from 7.6% to 5.3%. On the other hand, we see the rise of Spanish language from almost 6% to 7.47%. If we look at such languages as Portuguese, in 2008 it was almost 1.7%, and in 2012 4.7%. So it's a significant rise of Portuguese. Back in 2008, I have predicted, so my finding was, first of all, the share of English language, it's remained stable. So it's around 45%, and I assume that in the foreseeable future it will be pretty much the same number, maybe with a little fluctuation. Other languages, like traditional West European languages like German and French, are losing their status as top language in information production. and those languages are replaced by other players such as Portuguese, Russian, Chinese. That was my prediction back in 2008. So you look today, total share of Portuguese, Russian, and Chinese increased from 8.5% to 10 or almost 11%. And especially Portuguese, I think it is due to Brazil. Share of Portuguese increased from 1.7 to 4.7%. And Portuguese is one of the number 3 in Facebook, blogs, and Twitter, so one of the leading languages in digital media. And this is for Jessica to continue on this slide.
So this is something that we take very seriously at IdeaScale because a lot of our partners are global clients that have multiple people that they're trying to collaborate with all around the world, which is why IdeaScale has created an automatic translation feature which draws off of various APIs in order to get that user-generated content translated automatically, not just the static content that is uploaded by a particular branch of a company. But where we also want to pay attention to which languages are being used the most so that we can continue to optimize, particularly for those languages as our translation services improve. And that's a little bit about IdeaScale and languages at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And I will show you the last results related to 2012, so to visualize the current profile of information production in different languages. And I'm ready to take questions if you have any.
Well, I know I had a question more about your opinion than anything else, Sergey. I was wondering, should businesses, do you think, tailor their blogs and social media to the languages that are leading in those areas? I mean, if Portuguese is one of the other top languages featured in blogs, should company blogs that are trying to reach people make sure that they have a Portuguese version of their blog?
Well, from my experience at working in corporate environment, I understand that reaching customers, like for marketing purposes, reaching customers in different countries, this is very important. This is a very important task. And as long as we have seen the more and more activities of let's say Portuguese in Brazil primarily, I think that from this perspective, companies should pay attention in this area, let's say blogging or tweeting, if they want to promote their products or their ideas. On the other hand, another important part of this whole process is information production generates ideas, and those ideas originally expressed in all kinds of languages. And if you ignore information in other languages, in the long term, that might cause problems for your business or for the development or even for government organization. So the world become more and more globalized, and I think generally it's important to follow those trends, at least to be aware of what's going on in information production, and keep it in mind and take it into consideration in your business.
It's an interesting reminder that it's not just the language that you're communicating in yourself, but the languages that you're listening in, certainly, as well.
Yeah.
Do businesses ever ask you for this type of information? Did you ever apply it to the library or anything?
Well, the businesses, as far as I know, there's an interest in Twitter, and the websites I'll mention. There's some companies they monitor developments in Twitter. There's certain interest in in blogging. Uh, but website, for example, I don't think that nobody approached me with this in regards to website, or I've never heard that somebody was interested how information is in different languages presented on the web.
Hmm.
But maybe that we also should keep in mind or take into consideration.
Has anyone ever investigated how some of these numbers reflect on the cultures that the mediums are dominated by? I find it very interesting that Japanese is one of the top languages used in Twitter and that Portuguese is one of the top blogging languages. Has anyone ever done any anthropological research into that?
Well, I'm not personally aware of this.
Uh-huh.
I was conducting just my own research and never came across this type of research.
Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions here. And we're almost at time. So
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank everyone for joining, and I would like to thank you, Sergey, very much for presenting. It's very interesting information that you've shared here today. And remind everyone that they will be receiving a link to the recording in the next day or so. And thanks very
Thank you.
much.